This week's Whispers, is it all about the money? Want-away Payet and the ugly face of player power. Last chance to shop before the drop. Who's buying who in the relegation battle? And could Costa's conflict mean Griezmann to Chelsea is now a runner? And perhaps the biggest story of all is Lionel Messi heading to the Premier League. More about that a little later on. Welcome to Football Whispers, your definitive guide to who's going where and when in the transfer market. Joining us this week, John Smith, one-time agent to Diego Maradona, who's looked after some 400 players in his career, and former England international and Palace hero, still a Palace hero, John Salako. Transfer prices and player salaries are still on the rise, and the transfer window is always a stern test of loyalty. Two big names to have failed the test so far are Dimitri Payet and, if the rumours are to be believed, Diego Costa at Chelsea. Chelsea manager Antonio Conte is not one to believe in rumour.
If you want to know the truth, I'm ready to tell the truth. The truth is this, that on Tuesday, during the training session, Diego stopped because he felt a pain in his back. And from that moment, he didn't train during the week. And for this reason, today he wasn't available for the start 11 or for the bench or to come with the squad. This is the reason, this is the truth about Diego.
Do you think Diego Costa will play for Chelsea again?
Why not?
So there you have it. But Slaven Bilic couldn't supply the same answer when it came to Payet. The little Frenchman has effectively gone on strike, while the club insists he's not for sale, even if the player's family has flown home to Marseille and he appears to be planning on joining them. The headlines have been damning, and the fans' favourite last season has gone from hero to zero with frightening speed. It seems the rot started a while ago, leaving Bilic to point out that it's never all about one man.
Of course, you are losing the quality because he's a great player and all that, but the team showed that it's about the team, not about individuals, and that's once more it proved to be right, that it's about the team, and that was, if ever, this is a great example for that.
So his family are unhappy, John. He wants to make a move, but somewhere, there's an agent saying we can get more money out of them.
Look, I was one of the guys way back when that fought very hard to get players the right to earn the kind of money that they're earning now, because there's always been reasonable money in the game. Even if you go right the way back to the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, people would declare at the game there was 50,000 people there when there was 70,000 people there. And so there was always money sloshing around that wasn't declared, and the players never got to share in that. So I made it a mission for me. And that mission obviously succeeded. But there comes a point, and I have to say I feel very sorry for David Sullivan. I had a quick chat with him last night, in fact. I'm not certain, having done that Payet will leave. I think Marseille will try and take advantage of it. I think they'll try and lowball the price. And I think he might just end up staying till the end of the season. That's not a prediction, but I wouldn't discount it.
Well, I think you might have some trouble there. I was at the London Stadium. I go there, as an independent witness to football matches and things like that. But the crowd had turned. I mean, there was stamping on his shirt outside, and it really seems that if he ever came back, he'd struggle.
What I'm really disappointed with what Payet's done is this: the timing. If you speak to Marseille, if he's got family problems or family issues, he wants to go, they've offered him a lot of money, surely he's got to speak to West Ham and just do it the right way. Look, he was an absolute hero last year. He had a great tournament in the Euros. He's an absolute star, but he's only had 1 year. He's had 1 year with the platform at West Ham. Why go against him like that? But I'm telling you now, Matt, I mean, I've watched a few games there. They love Payet. If Payet turns around and says, look, I'm really sorry, you're right, I've been out of order, I want to play for you, and goes and scores goals, they will take him back into their hearts. It is very difficult to see him turning back now. He's made his stance. He's done it before. He did it at St Etienne. He refused to play. I think it is just disgraceful. I think it's abysmal when a player's got a great contract, they've looked after him, he treats a club like that. I think they should get rid. If they get the right money, get rid of him. Otherwise, he'll have to rot. But he's an absolute star. But what's going on is just wrong.
I mean, what John says is absolutely correct. The problem is the line you just used. If they get the right money, and Marseille, if it is Marseille, are going to have to come up with 30 million, and they're nowhere near. Now, if that doesn't happen, then it doesn't happen. Then somehow he's going to have to eat humble pie or create some sort of PR window for himself. I mean, the interesting thing about Payet is that none of us really knew about him. I mean, he was 28 when 29 when he turned up here, and he had this remarkable season. Sullivan and Gold did a fantastic deal with him. I think they paid him £125,000 a week, and then he came back from what was not the greatest of Europeans. He had one good game, and the rest he was sort of okay, and they gave him £1 million loyalty bonus.
John, will this be coming from his agent, or will this be coming from him, and where's the balance? Will the agent say, let's go for the money, or will this be Dimitri saying, I want to go to France, and you do the rest?
29 is a moment, as you know. You know, it's his last big deal. And this is greed, whether it's the agent, whether it's the family, whether it's the mother, brother, uncle, aunt, whatever, the local hairdresser who's backing him. Nobody really knows. But he will be saying to himself, I've got one opportunity here. Personally, I think 125 grand a week ain't bad. I think it's £1 million signing on fee, loyalty fee. That's good good term for it, isn't it? That, I think, is sufficient. He's got, I think he's got 3 more years in it.
He's got a great contract.
And that's me saying that.
What would you be saying?
I'd be saying stay, because there's more money here. If you stay in the Premier League, there's more exploited money here than
and I'll move you in a couple of years.
Yeah.
Or let's get to the summer at least. Get to the summer
or we'll take you
Hang on a minute. I'm
USA
trying to get my China question in, because they're everywhere, and they're offering Spondulax, and apparently that's what's turned Costa's head. What's your take on that?
Costa, I think it's a very interesting position now, because I think Abramovich has got to look at the situation and say, I mean, he obviously has these issues with China and his other businesses. My guess is that they must cross territory at some point in all his holdings in other areas. So he knows how to deal with this, Mike. And my educated guess is he knows how to deal with this. And I think Roman's got to come out, and will come out very strongly, to say, this is my club, and I'm strong enough, and I'm big enough, and I'm rich enough to make sure you stay. So again, I think Costa will stay till the end of the summer, and they'll engineer a way out, providing China is still in that place. The government are not happy with what's happened. And there's only a few people doing deals in China. There's a cabal of people doing deals off the back of the president saying the football is our next frontier. And a few people have moved into that territory, and the Chinese, I'm hearing at the very top of the Chinese authority, they're not happy with what's happening. So there might be a pullback in the next few months.
Getting quick then, John.
Just quickly, I was going to say, we talked about this before. If China, we did this to other leagues, we've taken all the best players from around the world. If China are offering 600 grand tax-free, you know, that's what Costa wants. He's on 150, he wants 300. I thought there's got to be some parity. They've got to move closer. So, you know, it is so embarrassing the way he's doing it, but, and especially the position Chelsea are in, they're going to, you know, they're in the lead in the title race, and they don't really need this at the moment, but, you know, player power, he's 28, he's thinking, I can make the most of this. Him and his agent are sitting there thinking, if we can get a 300 grand deal out of it, happy days. He doesn't want to go to China, by the way.
I've worked out, sorry, I've got to move on, but I've worked out if he's worth 650 grand a week, I mean, you scale it back, I could probably get 500 quid out of them.
I've just had a foot operation, and I could get that. Can I just say one thing? It always was about player power, and understandably, for a long while, Roman Abramovich is strong enough to stand up to that.
Yeah, well, he seems to be strong enough in all sorts of ways. Thanks very much. A little later, we'll take a look at what the bottom clubs can do to buy their way out of trouble and size up what La Liga may have to offer this window. But first, here's James Lorenzo with a roundup of some of the other moves in the making.
Thanks, Matt. Now, there are a fair few potential moves happening in the Premier League at the moment, a couple of which are particularly interesting in light of the games at the weekend. For example, it might not seem like Everton need a new striker after thumping Manchester City 4-0, but a deal for Algerian forward Ishak Belfodil is our fourth highest whisper today. It's on 4.5 at the moment, which might get Toffee fans excited, especially after France Football called the potential fee of just over £10 million one of the coups of the transfer window. Now, Memphis Depay is a name that keeps cropping up as we look at the bottom half of our top 10. The Manchester United winger was linked with Everton earlier this month, peaking at an index of 3.1, as well as Nice. That one hit 3.4. But the strongest rumour about him at the moment is the one linking Depay with a move to Lyon. Now, we all heard about Diego Costa's bust-up with Antonio Conte last week after reports of a move to China surfaced. and those reports are yet to die down. He's on a 3.7 to follow Oscar and make the big money move east. My deal of the day today concerns Tottenham's Ben Davies and a potential move to Manchester City. While that 4-0 result on Sunday didn't necessarily suggest that Everton might need a new striker, it certainly did suggest that City needs some defensive improvement, and Davies could well fit the bill. He's been a useful alternative to Danny Rose at Spurs and can also fill in at centre-back. At 3.5, we reckon there's every chance of Davies making the switch north. That's all from me. You'll hear from me again on Thursday. Back to the studio.
Thanks, James. Now, it's about this time of year that panic sets in and clubs start looking over their shoulders as the bottom of the table comes up to meet them. Panic buying can ensue, but sometimes it works. Over the last 3 January windows, Hull have brought in 4 players for over £16.5 million. It brought promotion, but didn't stop them going down the following year. Sunderland have historically been busy in the January window and spent over £16 million last season to finish just 1 position higher than the previous season when they spent nothing. Palace spent £9.5 million in the winter window and finished 11th 3 years ago, and they paid out just over £13 million the following season to finish just a place higher. But spending absolutely nothing last January coincided with them dropping to 15th. Finally, Swansea spent zip 3 years ago and ended up in 12th place. A year later, they spent more than £10 million on the way to 8th position, but last season they were back in 12th after splashing out £8 million in January. So, who are the league's basement battlers setting their sights on this January? First up, a masterclass in making the press-back's job difficult from new Swansea boss Paul Clement, as he confirms that Martin Olsen and first Tom Carroll are about to sign.
I mean, that signing is very close, and pending medical and paperwork, it will go through, I hope.
Same true of Clark and Olsen.
Same with Olsen.
I think you'd want to add to your squad, yeah. You certainly would, because our numbers are down more as much as anything. But we know that. We've all got players back from injury. We've all got more players back from the African nations in the coming months. So, but it's just this period we're pretty short. But everybody in here who follows us regular knows that is the case.
It's tough on the fact that players are going to look at us and say, we're in a relegation battle. Do I want to go to Crystal Palace? And then those that we can secure, we've got to make sure they're good enough. And then we've got to be able to handle the prices, which is probably the biggest difficulty of all today in this window. The inflated prices that are now being bandied about for players that are available. So it's a difficult window, one we must try and do our best in. And for me, it's not only about the window and new players, it's about understanding these players better and making a decision on these players, on getting them better to try and help us out, because it won't just be new players that get us out, it'll be the players who are already here.
Well, he makes the point. I mean, if you're a player currently with Palace, you're not doing so well, and you're hearing that Allardyce is going to spend big to get himself out of trouble, what effect does that have on your morale?
I think Sam's trying to rally the troops. It's very down there, it's very depressed. There's no confidence and no belief whatsoever, and I think that's Sam's biggest task. And I think by freshening it up and bringing a few faces in is the only chance he's got. You know, he's brought in Schlupp, he wants to bring in Jenkinson. He's got to really bring in a forward. I think if he can sign a centre-half as well, just got to freshen it up. And for the players in there, they need a big shake-up and realise that they've got a massive task now to stay in the Premier League, which, you know, is a must for Palace. They really are in trouble. You could see the way Sam's body language and he's talking. He's really gone in there and they've given him nothing. And he needs, I think, now to really have a positive mantra and go in there and really, you know, make them stand up and fight for points.
John, you're an agent, you've got a few players, you look at a side that's in trouble. Do you actually actively promote them? Do you ever get hold of the manager and say, you could do with this lad?
Yeah, it doesn't happen quite like that. I mean, there's normally this window would have been started to be configured around about the end of October. People start to juggle and look at the squads, and then of course there are targets, and when those targets don't materialise or somebody does something and that releases a player and that's another gap and somebody moves, you've got to have a backup. Plan B, Plan C, Plan D, and that's why it all crystallises in those last 4 or 5 days of the window. And it's not really the last day, it's the last 4 or 5. Because people are moving around going, oh, he's gone, and he's gone, oh, we're going to lose my left back. well, I think we'll have him because we like him. And that tends to happen quite a lot in the last few days.
It's that domino effect, isn't it? It's one transfer triggers almost like 10 transfers, and that will happen. But certainly for all those clubs down the bottom, they need to spend. There was obviously definitely a correlation between spending money and staying up. Last year, I remember in the January window, I recommended Jermaine Defoe, and I watched Benica Fobe, and we needed a striker. We needed someone who was going to score 5-6 goals after Christmas, and we, the chairman and Alan Pardew settled for Adebayor. I know and didn't spend any money on him, and he didn't work out, and we nearly went down. But it's all about goals, and really that gives you confidence. Goals make, prizes in the Premier League.
I think Sam's got a big asset in his locker. He's got luck. He was born under luck.
Never gone down. I like Sam. He's strong.
Of those 4 you mentioned, I think Sam's going to be okay.
And you had a 6-hour lunch with him in the week. We can't. I'll hear about it afterwards. Now, relying on gossip is never a good way to establish the facts. That's why we use technology and an algorithm to give substance to our stories. Here's a brief guide to how we do it. Well, last week we heard from our correspondent in Rio about some of these South American stars who could be on their way across the Atlantic. This week we turn to Spain to see what's on offer in La Liga. And European football expert Graham Hunter thinks one massive move might just be on the cards.
Muy buenos dias, Football Whispers. Your algorithm would previously have said -5 for Leo Messi, and it would have been right, but no longer. He has to be on the scale. Why? Barcelona are making a complete pig's breakfast of renewing his contract, starting with the chief executive who said, well, we have to prioritise. It means 300 million euros in debt, 400 million euros committed to renewing the stadium, many hundreds of millions committed to renewing the contracts for future salaries of Neymar, Luis Suarez, Busquets, leaving behind tail end Charlie, Leo Messi. Well done, Barcelona. Good work. Big budget clubs in the Premier League must be phoning Jorge Messi, the player's father, as Manchester City has done over the years, to say, what would it take? If you rank it, you say still the ball is in Barca's court and Messi prefers to stay. But do you remember Romario, Ronaldinho, the original Ronaldo, Luis Figo? Down to Sevilla, they beat Madrid to end a 40-game unbeaten streak at the weekend. Captain Vicente Iborra. Sunderland phoned me to ask me to help try and get him in the summer. Sam Allardyce wants him now for Crystal Palace. The other club involved, I think, is West Brom. Fede Marco, the player's agent, said, he's very, very happy in Sevilla, but I'm not a hypocrite. The right deal might move him. Steven Nzonzi, 30 million buyout clause. The best organising central midfielder anywhere in Europe at the moment. Sevilla think they'll lose him for that 30 mil, and the fighting clubs are Juve and Manchester City. At Atletico, poor old Griezmann playing so well that he wanted the rumours about leaving to stop. Well, he can't stop them. The current one is that because Costa and Chelsea seem to have fallen out and Cholo Simeone wants Costa back, the possibility of Griezmann to Chelsea increases on your algorithm in the summer because a player plus cash swap is on the card. Finally, at Real Sociedad, talking about keepers, Geronimo Rui only just became a Real Sociedad player this month. City want him back for 15 million euros already to either compete with or replace Claudio Bravo in the summer.
Gracias, Graham. John, it's a massive story at the top of that report. Messi, any credence to it?
Well, here's a couple of thinking points. The game that I love in this country, that we all love in this country, doesn't actually appeal to some players. And I would go as far as to say Messi's probably one of them. He gets a bit more space, he gets a bit more time to demonstrate this immense skill, and I think he's probably the most talented player we've seen for years. So that's on the negative side. And also, maybe he looks across the water here in England and looks at Pep and some of the issues that he's got and thinks, well, maybe it's, the grass isn't always greener. On the other side, he's just had a big run-in with the revenue in Spain. And I don't know how deeply that runs, or how deep that fallow is. And it might just be if the circumstances play, and if Man City can push the boat out, and they can sell him on the whole global issue of being in the Premier League, 146 countries around the world, 1.8 billion people watch you every weekend, all of that. I happen to know his father quite well, And he's a very balanced man. I know he's been in the front of the tax position, but he's quite a balanced gentleman, and he'll be weighing this up and doing what I've just done, but in a lot more detail with you. So if I had to make a decision today, I'd say no, it's not going to happen, but I wouldn't absolutely discount it.
How wonderful would it be to see Lionel Messi come and
Sure, yeah.
you know, he's at that age where he says, look, I've done all I can in La Liga, I've got all the records, you know, let me go and pit myself against, you know, the defenders in the Premier League. Would be lovely if he's got that hunger and that desire, and would love to see him, you know, at Man City or an Arsenal or a Man United, and come and that's what the Premier League needs to do now, is attract some of those real top-class stars to come and have a year or 2 years, and he might love it. I think he'd fit in
It's
well.
not an easy fit, though, as you know. I mean, look at Pogba. He's a good player, and he's struggling, but he'll be fine. But you know, it's scary sometimes for the Messis, even for the Messis, to come here and look at our league.
One other name mentioned there, Griezmann, which we think may be more of a probability because of what's gone on at Stamford Bridge.
Well, you can say Diego Costa's causing a problem there, and I think one thing they probably might try and do, maybe Llorente or, you know, someone from one of the lads from Juventus. But I think Conte needs to make a statement and say, bring someone in and say, right, you don't want to play for us, or you're going to cause me problems. I'm going to bring someone in and you don't play, you know, or you know, you sort your act out, or we'll let you go. You know, you're not bigger than the club. So I think Chelsea could do that. I think Griezmann's probably more likely to tap in the summer. It'd be great to see him because he's a fantastic talent. Griezmann, I think, arguably in the top 3 best players. He had a great tournament.
He was the man who probably took it away from Payet during the European Championship.
Yeah, no, he's fantastic, and I think he can play the 10. You know, he can play wide, and he's got a great ethic.
He'd be great. He'd do well in this game.
He seems like a wonderful attitude. It's just a bit, you know, after there was a little lull, but you know, some of the foreign players have come, but you know, I hope there's not a problem with Sanchez, but they've done so well. But they get to that point where they want to earn the money, and that's what I said before. I think the Premier League's got to stand up now and give them what they do, because they're top quality players.
It's an interesting point that you make. Can we just take Sanchez for a second? I mean, supposing I'm Sanchez's agent now. I'm sitting there and there is an offer. Let's assume the offer from China is real and it's £400,000 a week. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, okay, go match it, boys. You know, we want to stay.
Yeah.
We want to stay. Go match it. I think Arsenal will get closer to it. And Arsenal got 8 coming out, by the way. 8 in 18 months, which is interesting, isn't it? They've got 8 of their major names, not just Ozil, but there's another 6 behind those 2. So it'll be an interesting. I think Sanchez is their statement, and also they've got a manager who may or may not be there at the end of the year. So interesting times.
You can't leave it there. What's your take on the Wenger debate? Because we heard from the Arsenal fans last week, and it's every week they're outside the Emirates berating him. Others are supporting him.
My guess, and it is a guess, I mean, I know Arsene pretty well, and I think if he has a decent year this year, and what does decent mean this year? There's 6 clubs challenging this year. But if he has a decent year and it feels right, he'll stay for 2 more years.
I think for me, seeing Klopp come in and Conte, and seeing what you know, all the other clubs are doing, I think it's time for a change. I think they need fresh blood. I love Arsene Wenger. You know, I think he's been a great manager. I know that they don't want to tempt fate and get rid of him, but I just think a Simeone, I think Klopp would have fitted brilliantly. I think there's so many managers out there. I just think Arsenal need a fresh impetus, need fresh blood, and that has to come from the top. Whether Wenger goes upstairs or go and manage England, I think Wenger for England. And
interestingly, I mean, he is so that club. I mean, you can't order an iPhone if you're in the training staff unless it's signed off by Arsene down at the training ground. I mean, he's absolutely that. And all the big names have actually passed. I mean, Simeone's won. He's a bit of a firework, but you know, he's certainly won. But doesn't naturally fit. For me, Simeone and Arsenal doesn't quite. It's interesting. There's a lot of people share your view. I just happen to think he's not quite ready to exit just yet.
Take Guardiola from Man City. It's not working out there. Come to Arsenal.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. It's been a fascinating discussion, and we'll probably pick up on a few of those points next week. And by the way, John Smith has a book out, which we didn't get time to mention. It's called The Deal. If you like an anecdote, there's about 4 million in there. I recommend it heartily. That's about it from us for now, but that's not about it for you. We'd like to hear from you, and over 500,000 of you viewed our last show via Twitter or Facebook to hear the questions you want asked, or for you to tell us about the rumours you've heard, or your views about any of the stories we're running. Tweet us at FB_whispers, or go to our Facebook page. We'll be back on Thursday. I look forward to seeing you then.